For those who are in this space right now, I'm Jenny Clark, one of the pastors here at Westminster Church, and we welcome you to our church. We welcome you to the 20 Men Project exhibition. We welcome those who are part of the church and those who are coming from outside the church. In 2019, Westminster Church accepted the Presbyterian Church USA, which is the denomination of which we are a part of. We accepted their invitation to become a Matthew 25 church, following the teachings of Jesus in Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. And in that passage, it's a parable of Jesus, of the sheep and the goats, in which he makes it clear that what we do matters to God and how we treat others is important to God. And when we welcome others, we welcome Christ. And when we bring together divided people, when we perform acts of compassion, when we advocate for justice, when we work for peace, we are doing God's reconciling work. Being part of a Matthew 25 community, we have pledged to embrace building congregational vitality by deepening faith and growing as joyful disciples engaged in our community as we share the gospel in word and deed, by dismantling structural racism, by fearlessly breaking down systems, practices, and thinking that underlies discrimination, prejudice, and oppression of people of color, by eradicating systemic poverty, by acting on our beliefs and working to change laws and policies and structures that perpetrate economic exploitation of people who are poor. Today, we are really, really grateful to have the 20 Men Project exhibition here at Westminster. We are especially grateful for Sandrine DeBrugen, who was the photographer who did all these beautiful portraits that you see around the room. And also we would welcome, especially there standing in the back is Jerry Franklin Poe, whose portrait is one of the ones out here. The two of them will be speaking to the group gathered here about how this project came to be and kind of its growth and where it's heading, and just their own personal experience they will share. We also want to welcome others. I know there are other people in the room who are part of this project and portraits, and also people who had the vision for this project, who are here to share also in this time with us. So with that, let me open with prayer, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sandrine and to Jerry. Would you pray with me? Gracious Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather as brothers and sisters. We thank you, Lord, for those who have been part of having the vision and then making it come to life with the 20 Men Project. And we pray that you will bless our time together, that we will all have ears to hear and eyes to see and hearts to welcome one another, and to grow and to continue to be formed as the people you intend us to be. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So if you want the mic, I'm going to turn it. You might not need it, but it's gotten a little quieter in the room. I'll leave it up here if you decide you want it.
Can anyone hear me, or do I need a mic?
Yeah. Just gotta hold it like an ice cream cone so that.
Okay, I'm very uncomfortable talking in a microphone. Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Sandrine. I'm a photographer of 20 Men Project. Next, like in the corner there's Jerry Franklin Poe. We have Jermaine Thomas and Ashton Simmons, but all three are photographed for this project and donated their time to help bring the project to the community. On the left side there is Christine Marty Ochoa. She's the one who had the vision of the project when she reached out to me to see if I was interested in photographing positive images of Black men. I want to give a disclaimer. I'm from the Netherlands. We've been here for 10 years, but I still have an accent, and sometimes I say something maybe that's a little weird or form the sentence awkward. My apologies in advance. So, and especially when I'm nervous, which I am. But thank you for everyone who joined from home on the Zoom meeting, and we are very grateful for your time and your willingness to listen. So 20 Men Project, how can images change the way we look at people? What do you see? We have, in 2020, right after the murder of George Floyd, a group of concerned Chester County residents came together and said, like, do you think this could happen in our county? Do you think that, like, you know, we have to worry about that? What happened to George Floyd can happen to one of our men or our kids. And there was a concerned group of citizens. It was in the midst of COVID, so we met every Tuesday on Zoom and we talked about those issues. And during one of those meetings, Christine, she is a concerned mom and community member, and said, why do all we see those signs on the highway? That's a wanted sign. It's always a black man. It's never a woman or like a white man. In fact, it's been the same guy for like almost 2.5 years. And I did some research. I've heard he's already like arrested. And the fact what he did, I mean, there's no like saying that there is a crime better or worse or whatever, but like it was a mail fraud. And he's been the face of that like banner for I don't know how many years already. She said, I would like to see positive images of black men. Can we show men like as we know them, like, you know, positive role models in our community? And my dad's black. And I said, yes, we can. So I signed up for something that I did not realize was going to be this big, but I could have only dreamed for something to be this big. I think that like I would like to share a little bit, and there's a lot of text, and that's just because this is the information that I would like for people to read maybe on a later point, and I think Jenny is going to share it with you all as well. When the media misrepresents black men, the effects are felt in the real world. That means that that people are seeing black men as the black men, which if you see all these photos, they're all different. I asked them, how do you want to be photographed? Where do you want to be photographed? With whom do you want to be photographed? What do you want the world to see? And they selected each of them their own way of how they wanted to be represented or how they want to be seen. So the media chooses to show us a certain way, and we would like to change that narrative. We want to show that there's black college professors or doctors or lawyers or scientists. But even if you're like, the question on one of the cards is, what do you think is a successful person? And that can be someone who's a doctor, but it can also be someone who does a lot of things for the community and helps other people grow. So there are some very important lessons that we have to like think about when we talk to ourselves about what do we see as successful and what do we feel like is successful. I think all the men that are here photographed are leaders, community leaders, because they said yes to something that was at that point not necessarily okay for everyone to say yes to. So the fact how men are seen in the media also shows how other people like that don't have many. I think Steve said, I don't know if Steve's here, he said to me, we all live in our bubble and we don't know what's going on outside our bubble. And if you see in your bubble on TV that
Lord Jesus Christ, be with you as we gather for worship.
Sorry.
How good? Keep going.
Tim will take care of it. That men are represented a certain way.
My name is John Frost.
Sorry.
Leadership
No, it's not you, it's us.
College Ministries Director Chris Clark,
Interconnected.
along with all the
I'll wait for a moment. I don't know if my voice is heard in there.
also just
I don't think it's John Frost or God, I'm not sure.
But if you see like how some men are represented in the media, that means that people who don't like connect with people in their bubble might think that all men are like that. And that can help with like college admission, school grades, everything, treatment within the justice system. A lot of things can affect how men are seen through media. This is an article that we shared in the beginning of Race Group. And if you see, there's a different way of people, how the media brings this news. On the left side, you see a 19-year-old arrested for murder. And on the right side, you see someone who's a burglary suspect. the QR codes of the articles are on the bottom. If you're interested in reading the full article, I didn't include all that. I just wanted to show what this is a head of a newspaper. And then the explanation that the article gives is on the left side, you see a guy and there's talking about how he's a very kind young man and he's good in school, and they are like naming all his positive characteristic or character traits. And on the right side, they have the photo of the young man or the man that has the burglary suspect, and they talk about him as the black male. Even if they're like little, like young boys are talked about like as a black male. If you look at Tamir Rice, you see the photo of the man on the right is much bigger than the photo of the man on the left. You see that the photo of the man on the right is in a like a prison outfit. On the left is a college like ID photo. So there's a difference in how you use a certain photo for a certain message. And then I'll go to the, so our media is incredibly biased when it comes to covering crime involving people of color. And I think it's important that when you see something, you think about it, why is it portrayed this way, and what do we need to change, or how do we change it, or what can we do to change it? And part of 20 Men Project for me was very, this is like something that I talked about, so I'll skip over this. Something for me to do some more research because I was interested in how that worked. And I just Googled most wanted men in Chester County, and I saw mostly Black photos. There were a lot of people that were white, but their photo was like as you just saw like no photo provided, or I don't know how they like shared it. But if people see this in your bubble, you will think all crimes are being committed by Black men, which is not the case. But it's a narrative, and it's something that if we don't talk about it, we don't see it, or you don't see it necessarily right away. But it's something that affects, has a bigger effect in our community. What we like to change. So we would like to change it with interviews and photographs. So when Christine asked me, do you want to have a photograph positive images of Black men? I said yes. So on the left side here, that's my dad. My dad had Alzheimer's. He passed away during this project. He was at the end of his Alzheimer's stage, he was very sad and angry at some days. And we didn't know what, but we figured out that it was because the way he was treated during his work life or whatever in the community, and he never shared with us. And that's something that I talked to a lot of the men that I photographed about, and they said, well, we don't talk about those things. That's just not something we talk about. And I thought, why are we not talking about it? You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but if you do want to talk about it, we can talk about it because it's something that makes me feel uncomfortable or makes you feel uncomfortable, but we can talk and then like listen to each other and understand each other better. So like I said, I asked him, where do you want to be photographed? How do you would like to be photographed? What do you want the community to know about you? How is it to be a Black man in Chester County? And what do you want to change to make it a safer world for your kids? So we talked about it every week, and everyone said, oh, I have a Black friend or a Black neighbor or someone I went to school with, and you should reach out to them. So I reached out to over 100 men. And everyone said, well, it's a very nice project, but no, I'm not doing that. No, because remembering that like 2020, when there was a lot of talk about protest and Black Lives Matter, and everyone was afraid to be like the first person to be like, this is what I'm going to step up for. So on the right side, you see Larry, and Larry was part of the race group at that time. And he was the first one after 9 months to say, okay, you can come to my house and then you can photograph me. And the part was, Larry wanted to be photographed or seen as a homeowner because he said not a lot of people think that Black people own homes. So we talked together. I had my camera out, but I had it down more than up. And we talked, we had some laughs. There were some tears. There were some very conversations that I learned from a lot. And it was amazing. And I showed Larry the photos. He said, I've been never photographed this way. This was amazing. And I took Larry's photo and I went to the next person, and that was my daughter's eighth grade history teacher who lived in our development. I said, Tracy, I have this thing. This is what I do. Can I photograph you? He said, yeah, sure. It's COVID. I have nothing to do. I cannot go to school. Let's do it. And I had the same experience with him, and he had the same experience with being photographed and talking. And then we went to the next. So it took a while. I don't know if that's, it took a while for, like, Jerry was the first one to reach out to us and say, hey, I've heard about this project. I can say that from Southern Chester County, and I would love to represent Southern Chester County. Can I be photographed? Absolutely, we would love that. But most of the times I had to reach out to people to ask. And then when, like, community leaders, like, say, okay, yeah, they people will say, okay, if that person is doing it, then I can do it too. And then they felt more comfortable being photographed. So that's Tracy is the second one to say yes to us. So a lot of the men that you see here, or almost all of them, are working to improve our community. They are not the ones to, like, say it out loud most of the time. They do that quietly, and they share that. They're not like the ones who stand up and say, listen, look what I do. So I'm doing that on their behalf because I'm really proud of what they all do. So, like, CJ is like member of the Creative Club of Chester County, co-owner, and he's having a program that helps kids with STEM activities, but also helps youth on probation getting into filmmaking. Timmy, he would really like to be here, he was not able to today, is working, or is a board member for the Westchester Food Cupboard, and is very passionate about like food deserts in certain areas in our county, but also is a board member for Chester County Hospital, which helped us get into Chester County Hospital to show the community the photos previously. And then Jermaine, he's here, is the owner of a barbershop in Downingtown, but also very involved with Leap for Coatesville and passionate to make sure that everyone has access to good healthcare, and, like, promoting how it is important to check your blood pressure, and, like, have all these, he organizes events to make sure that that's taken care of. So yeah, so they're, like, doing that all mostly, like, and this is, like, just 3. I can tell you stories about every one of them. And I would like to, like, if you're walking around, I can share a little bit more about that as well. So one of the things that really were interesting to me is that there were a lot of teachers that, like, signed up to be photographed. And one of them said to me, I might be the only Black role model, positive role model, that, like, some of my kids get in their lives, and that's how maybe their parents are not talking to them about Black people, and I'm going to be the person to show them that, like, all Black men are not criminals as they might hear or see in the media. So they all are involved in improving our community and making sure that kids get to know a little bit more about, like, education, about the differences between everyone else. So there's also a lot of men involved in healthcare and improving the healthcare in our county. And it can be anything from mental health. Rob over there has a podcast for mental health. He started that during COVID. Mental health amongst Black men, and about depression and mental health issues. You see, like, the men over here, there are the men that were all, like, at the Leap event that Jermaine hosted, but they were not all aware that they were all photographed for 20 Men Project. So that was very special to me. Elgin is a social worker, and he's also very involved in the justice system. So they're, like, all like, aspects of health care are taken care of. Then we have men who are addressing community problems. They're involved in politics. They are involved in DI, or like their school administrators. They're involved with the VA, like with volunteer projects for food problems, where we get like a lot of issues that are discussed that I was not aware of that are happening in our community. So I learned from every one of them. I learned something. Then we have dads. Like I can tell you that my dad's from Curacao, and there's in the Netherlands there's almost like a stigma that like their dads are not like present in their lives, or like, so I always had to explain that my mom and dad were married for over 50 years and very happily married, and I saw my dad on a regular basis until we moved here, of course. But like that's a thing, and I think that's important, that not only you can be a dad, like, but you can also be a mentor. And I think a lot of them mentor Black boys in our community. And I think it's important for that to like mention, what you can do for others. We also asked about locations. I've been to locations that I've never been before. People said, I would like to be photographed at my old neighborhood. There were a few men who had to be photographed at Chester County Hospital because they worked there and they were interested in having our exhibition there. There was also someone who said, this is my first time in a middle school where I felt seen as a Black man or a Black boy. So there were various reasons of why we went to all these different areas. But it was very interesting, and I learned a lot there too. We said at first we want to have men that are connected to Chester County. But that was very difficult because there were a lot of men that did not want to sign up at first. So I reached out to the people that I knew through and they were like somehow connected to Chester County, but did not live in Chester County at the moment. They work in Chester County. They have relatives in Chester County. The furthest away, I think, is Sean, who's in Newcastle in Delaware. He lives close to Virginia. And he works in Chester County. So at some point we said, let's invite anyone who says yes. And that way that worked a lot to help gain more people to say yes in our community, in our county. So where do we go with this? We have exhibitions. We went, and I'm very proud of that. We were invited in the state capitol. We had the main rotunda, had all the photos there. We're recognized by Senator Comita for the work that we did. We would like to have a magazine. I started a little bit. You can see it in the front. There's a book. My goal would be one of the photo books in the middle, to have one of them and then share the amazing stories of the men. We'd like to go to school. There are ideas of a podcast or videos or anything. The reason someone asked me, I don't know if that person's still here, why is there not a bio? Why is there not information of each man with the photos? At some point in 2021, one of the men who was speaking at a school board meeting or multiple school board meetings for his work had to be escorted by police out there because it was not safe for him to walk back to his car. That was the reason that we said that's my mama bear part. I need to protect. I'm not going to share anything that's not to be shared in public, and we are not going to connect names and jobs and where people live. And that is very painful because I think everyone should be very proud of what they do or what they. But at that point, we decided not to do that, just in protection. At this point, we are talking to see maybe we can have a bio, or whoever is comfortable with sharing more about what they do or their community involvement, to have that. But again, this is a grassroots volunteer project that we need the time to make sure that happens. But we were in a lot of places already. We went to the Melton Center in Westchester, the capital, state capital in Harrisburg. We went to schools, we went to the Exton Library, we went to the Chester County Community Foundation. They were wonderful, hosted us for 2.5 months. We went to like a restaurant in Kennett Square. And my favorite part always is when I'm there and I'm just showing everyone around, when like the men are showing up and coming to like support the project or like come to say hi. And my like on the right side you see Alex. He was in college when we photographed him. He was one of the first, and he said, I didn't realize it was 2.5 years ago that I was photographed. And he was like, so he's working now, and it's like a whole different experience for him. So he said, I might want to do another photo because I would like to have another way to be photographed. We have like Jermaine was one of the first ones who had like one of the sample magazines, and he carries that in his barbershop, and he talks about that when he's, when people ask about it. So that's something that like, really would be wonderful. And Ashton went with us to the state capitol to like share a little bit about why we did this project. So and Jerry went to the Chester County Community Foundation to like talk to people there when we had our opening night. So there's a lot of involvement from the men still. I think my Christmas present this year was when Jerry took the initiative to invite all of them to watch an Eagles game. And we went to like a restaurant where we all, like 11 or 12, I think, men met, and the goal was to meet with others that could not make it that day. But like that's how connected they are. They are starting to connect with each other and make a network of amazing community leaders and see how we can make it even better. I would like to share this story on the bottom. A friend or someone that I know from a community event sent me that photo and told me that was when we were our first exhibition at the Exton Library. And she said, I come here with this young man every Tuesday, and he had autism. He does not speak, but she comes there to read with him every week. And she said, this man just lost his dad, and it was right after I lost mine. So that was very connecting to me. But like she said, he stands in front of those photos for the whole time that we are there, and he just touches them and he just looks at them. And she said he lives in a house where there's no Black role models for him. So this is how he's connected to them. So I reached out to the men on these photos and I said, share that story. And one of them immediately responded back to me and said, please give me this contact for this young man. I would like to mentor him. So that's how involved they are in the community. I would like to thank everyone that like helps, because I'm just the face sometimes of the project, but it's not just my project. Of course, the men, I could not have done this without them. They are fabulous. I gained uncles, brothers, cousins, like, whatever. This is like my family away from home. Christine Ochoa, thank you for asking me to be the photographer for this amazing project. All the volunteers, the sponsors and donors, to my husband and my family, because this takes a lot of my time out of there, away from them, and they are nothing but supportive. And there's like some other like people that I would like to recognize that have been sponsors that have been amazing to make sure that we are where we are today. I'd like to have Jerry like come up, or even if like Ashton and Jermaine feel welcome to come up, and if you have any questions for them or for me, please feel free to ask us. I'll go back to, because there's like one more thing before we go to your question. So there's the QR codes. If the codes are too small on the cards, feel free to scan them here. And we have some of you received the cards with some questions on there. That's just like to make it a little bit more interactive when you walk by the exhibition. Like, what do you think these men do for a job? What do you think their family looks like? And how do you think they're involved in the community? And how did you come to your answers? What does it mean Why do you think a certain way about looking at a photo? And does the appearance of a man change the way you see him? And there are other cards like that are like similar, but like that's a little bit what like we would like to have a conversation with. So I don't know, Jerry, if you want to share a little bit about your involvement in the project.
Excellent. Good. Was it afternoon? It's morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jerry Franklin Poe. I came to the project because I saw it existed and I didn't see anybody that I knew being photographed. I've lived in Chester County a long time, even back to when Chester County was more territorial. And there were rivals between schools and towns, Coatesville, Downingtown, Kennett, Havering Grove. We always didn't get along when it came to sports. So I didn't see anyone from Southern Chester County. So I felt like, what's going on? Why are they representing Oxford? Why aren't they representing Kennett, West Grove, anybody from my neighborhood? It's like, forget about Exton and Malvern and Chester, bump all those dudes. Where are my people at? So that's why I reached out. So they would have someone from that part that sometimes gets neglected. When we think of Chester County, and you think of Chester County from politics, education, a lot of the events happen at this end of the county and not that end of the county. So I came to the project as a way to show representation from the part that I know, the part that I grew up in, the part that my family's been involved in for a long time. My family's been in Southern Chester County for almost 200 years. So we've been in there for a long time, not going anywhere. Most of my family's in Union Hill Cemetery, and that's probably where I'll end up as well. So with my cousins. So that's how I came to the project. I wasn't afraid of being out there, being seen. I told Sandrine, anybody can come to my house anytime that they want. My grandfather didn't believe in the Second Amendment, so we were always prepared to have people coming up on it. So I didn't care about having any good trouble or bad trouble. I was okay. So that's how I got to the project. And I went to Longwood Gardens because Longwood has always been a part of my life. My mom was a retiree from Longwood Gardens, so I spent a lot of time there from the age of 15, even to now I'm 46. My daughter just went out there for the Christmas lights with my mom because as a retiree, you still get to go in for free. So as an employee's child, I was always out there because I had a pass. I could just walk up and they let me in. I could walk around. I could go to the Italian water gardens. I could go out to the waterfall. I could go to the Chime Tower. And I could just be by myself. I'm what you would call an introvert. So a lot of times I would just be out there just sitting on a bench, looking out, just thinking about stuff. And I think that ties into what Sandrine was talking about in her message. Optics and narratives are so critical to our society. When it comes to politics, these things are always used to manipulate us. So when we think of optics, it's how we see things, and the narrative is the story that we tell. And they both build on each other. So when you see imagery being used against you, the question you gotta ask yourself is, does this image confirm a belief or does it create one? And for many people, whether you are conscious of it or not, some of the imagery that you see is confirming beliefs that have already been dropped into you because the seeds were planted as soon as you were born into this society. The problem with the idea or ideology of white terrorism is what I call white supremacy, is the fact that whether you want to be a part of it or not, you're in the system. Because the system is done intentionally to either build up privilege or build up inferiority. Whether you agree to it or not, it's happening, whether you're conscious of it, because all of the messages you're getting go to your subconscious brain, which sometimes creates thinking that you didn't consciously become aware of. And you do things without even thinking about it because the bias is there and it's been created a long time ago. So this is just about us being critical thinkers. And that's what society does not want us to be, critical thinkers. They don't want us to analyze the messages. They don't want us to break them down. They don't want us to actually think about it and have dialogue and conversation. And a lot of these conversations will make you uncomfortable. And the uncomfortable conversations need to be had. We all need to get out of our comfort zone. I've been doing this work with social justice for a long time. I know a lot of young people were asking me, like, how old is this guy? But I started on this journey many, many years ago, because for me, this was something that was neglected growing up. I grew up in predominantly white environments. So I had to combat certain issues without being able to talk to my parents, because my parents thought things were better. They didn't realize that I was going to these schools that where a lot of people that looked like me. I was still combating the same struggles that people were doing 20, 25 years ago. We just didn't have open dialogue. Back then, we weren't having conversations. There was no space to talk about it. You just pretended like it didn't happen. When someone called you out your name, you just went along with your day and kept it going. Now, you might catch them on the playground later on in the afternoon, but that's all there was to it. With my daughters, I wanted to prepare them for going through this journey in this world. So I would start giving them messages to combat what they were getting in school. I called it corrective education. So when they were coming home talking about Columbus, I was like, oh, that's a bunch of lies. And I would give them the truth about what had happened. You know, this was a terrorist. He came in, he executed people, they killed people, they stole the country. So I said, here's what you tell your teacher to get an A, but here's the truth.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality of the situation that we live in. So I've been intentional about creating a paradigm for them to know who they are and their identity so they can stand strong in this world that's going to be constantly attacking them. So a lot of this messaging that Sandrine is talking about is how do we combat these messages that are being fed to us because they want you to go along with the system. The system is built in such a way now that it's self-generated. And unless someone starts to tear it down from the base, we'll never see any changes in our society. So that's all I want to add. I mean, I could go on, but we got to end at 12 o'clock. So what questions? You want to have just questions, right?
I would say one thing. I read a book called Restored Manhood, and it was written by a African-American priest from Philly, and he could not believe how these kids were coming out of their houses. And I'd recommend everyone to read that because that was unbelievable.
It's called Restored Manhood.
What?
Was it called Restored Manhood?
Yes. And it was a great book. He couldn't believe how these kids were coming out, watching the fathers, what they were doing with their mothers, and helping get involved, mentor. I like that book. I couldn't put it down. I was shocked.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else have a question? I don't know, Jermaine or like Ashley or Jane. Any? Go ahead, sir.
Comment. Every photo that I saw exuded pride. Not happiness, not complacency, but pride for just being you. It's not really a question, it's just a comment.
Thank you for seeing that. I reached my goal, first of all. But second of all, I did not ask any of them, besides a little like, well, it looks more flattering if you stand a little bit like this, but like, you know, if you would have, that's not, but like most photos that are taken, I did not ask anyone, smile, because that does not give an authentic smile. And we had that like conversation. The first thought was to have someone with us, with me as a photographer to do the interview style. And we did that with one or two persons. And it kind of worked, but it did not work because they pointed their attention towards the interviewer, not towards me and the camera. So I tried to get the questions when there's something was said, I would try to ask a follow-up question. And at some point there was this smile that I thought that's the one, and then just clicked. Yeah, it was not like a stage or anything. This is like their authentic smile or self or pride or like, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So part of what you see is attributed to the artist, which is Sandrine. We, as the subjects, I don't think can take all the credit because of her style. So if you ever want to hire a photographer that's going to capture you in the best light, I would suggest you hire her. What I do professionally causes me to be more in the public and get photos taken a lot. So I've never had a session like this because she was just constantly talking. And what I mean by that, she was asking questions and you were talking back. So I'm like, well, why don't we go on like just stand here and be like, because she just asked me like, so what's going on? You're talking, and she's like, shh. So she's taking, so a lot of the photos that she didn't see that we didn't pick, my mouth is open and like my hands are moving because she's constantly taking photos of you through a conversation. So she's just capturing you because you're at ease the whole entire time because you're having a dialogue with her because she's just being inquisitive and she's interviewing you and she's capturing the story in her mind from a word perspective, but she's also documenting it from a photojournalist perspective through the photos. So what you see is what she's capturing in the moment as she's actually extracting stuff from you, which is a very different way of having a session. Because most of the time when you do a session, they'll just like, all right, stand up there, do some poses, and they'll just be snapping away. They're not like talking to you, and you're speaking to them as you're actually doing the photos at the same time.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about your process, so I'm really glad that Jerry brought that up. What I really like about what you've done is taken you share with us your subject's humanity, which I think is at the root of a lot of fighting racism. But I'm just wondering how long these shoots lasted, and tell us a little bit more about the process. I'm interested in your photographic techniques.
Okay, yeah,
or
absolutely.
approach.
So some of them, like most of them were like an hour. There were like some where it was there was one where it was 3 hours, and that was just because there was coffee involved. It was freezing cold. It was with Brian Hearns, and it was like the coldest day. My camera almost didn't work because it was so cold. So we took a few photos at Marsh Creek and then said, let's go. And he brought his wife to the session. So we went in like to a Dunkin' Donuts and got coffee. And that was the longest one, but there was no photographing there involved. Some of these men are very, very busy. So you just have to make sure that you get like whatever you need within this certain amount of time. And I think like Jerry, when we went to Longwood Gardens, it was, I don't know, it was the hottest day I think in the summer. And Jerry was dressed up full like in his suit. So we went to a few locations that Jerry said like I would like to be photographed there. And so then we went to those areas. I didn't direct that. That was what like Jerry had in mind to be photographed. For Jermaine, it was big. I had his lunch break, maybe 30 minutes. That was because of the he's a barber and he needs to have a client. So there we did some photos inside, and then I had a vision of him being outside. And so that's I think one of the few that I directed. And I said, okay, look over, go 75 your store and look over there and think that you see something that's very interesting. And I think that's this photo that this one. But that was like he was almost like his client was already in. I said, "Can we do one more, please?" So, but yeah. So most of them. So when you ask where do you want to be photographed, the only ones that like did not have an actual choice were the men from Chester County Hospital, because Chester County Hospital would like to have the men photographed in or around the hospital, but they did select where they would like to be photographed in that like small area. So I don't know if that answers your question.
There's one over there as well.
Just wanted to ask, so when you were doing the photo shoot and asking them all the questions, did you possibly record it for being able to extract the non-identifiable, but yes, bios?
I understand.
This person
Yeah,
is.
I understand your question. I wish I would have. At that point, it was like already like in the beginning, it was already challenging for men to say yes to be photographed. I didn't want to push it any further for men to say no. So what I did after each photo session, I jumped in my car and I typed in everything that I could remember, and I did email them like, is there anything you would like to, like the quotes that you see on the card, like some of them, and there's a quote like in the beginning. They send those quotes to me. Some send them their whole bio to me. That was also helpful. But like there are like quotes that they send to me after, and there are quotes that I collected through the process. I wish I would have recorded it because these conversations were so special. But I would like to share what Timmy said to me. We had recently had an interview with someone from the Daily Local, and Timmy was with me, and he said we all like in some way are connected to one another, and we all share things with Sandrine that might be personal and might not be for anyone else, because it was just in a moment. It was a very honest personal conversation, and we don't want those information to go to the rest of the county. So I don't do that. I ask, is it okay for me to share that like information? Do you want to have your photo in the state capitol, or do you want to have your job with an article in Mainline Today, for instance? And I ask each and every one of them, because I think it's not my story to tell. I don't know where they are. Maybe they were photographed 2.5 years ago and are in different job positions or different family positions. So I'm careful for that. But Timmy said in all the years that we have this project, I've never had anyone say to me, "Oh, that was shared like that. I didn't want to be shared." And he said, and that's like when you go to the barbershop, what you say in the barbershop stays in the barbershop. And he said, Sandrine's like the female barbershop because she did not share anything. So that was the biggest compliment that I could get. So that's, I hope that answers your question.
Understandable.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just love the whole project and the fact that you're getting it with so much outreach. And I don't want to add to your workload, but have you thought of Westchester University, Cheney University, Lincoln University, and the new Kennett Square Library? I know they would
So
jump on
to answer
this.
your question, I'm talking to someone that's connected to this church that works at Cheney. So we're probably,
Okay.
hopefully, if that everything goes well, we're going
That would
to be there in the
great.
in the month of February. We're talking to someone in Coatesville that wanted to have us there, and any connection that anyone has here, you know, we have a book in the front. Please write any recommendations or leads or whatever you have that we can just take the photos and like share a story with the community, because that's why this project was started. We wanted to have people to talk about it and like have a conversation with your kids. Like, listen, I saw these photos and I don't know, maybe I've been telling things wrong, or maybe I've been seeing things wrong, or maybe I've been, I mean, it's difficult conversations, but they're important conversations to have.
So where does it go next?
So we hope that it goes to Cheney, like in
Okay.
February. Yes.
All right.
I was really gonna ask if you could share your agenda so we can tell friends
Yes.
where they can meet you and see the exhibits.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm trying to update the website that we can have that like as an add-on that you can like if we are public, we have our social media account. I realize that not everyone might be on social media, so I'm just gonna see if we can have a calendar on the website. Thank you for that. That's a good one. Yeah.
I want to ask Jerry, you've been thinking and doing this for a long time, and some of us are kind of like 5 years into trying to get our head around this and be better at it. Do you see hope? Where do you see this going? Can you tell me anything that would be optimistic?
Or but be honest.
That's a good question. So optimism and hope when it comes to fighting in the social justice struggle. You have to. That's a very tough question, because the longer you stay in, the less hopeful you can become.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll see changes within my lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll see changes within my daughter's lifetime. And the challenge is, how do you go through life knowing you may not see the change, but now you have to keep fighting anyway? The only way you can do that is if you know that the fight is bigger than your life, which it is. So I'm not really fighting for me, I'm fighting for 5 generations from now. Because at some point it has to get better, because the Bible says that don't get weary in well doing. Everybody knows that scripture. I didn't bring my text with me, I may have it electronically.
We can believe it.
But so that's the challenge, is that you have to figure out a way to see small victories. We're always looking for big victories. But the challenge with the victories is what we call white backlash.
Yeah.
See, every time there's a victory, someone changes the system and the rules and moves the line.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're watching a football game and the Eagles are trying to score a touchdown, but Dallas keeps moving where the end zone is. Sorry, but you know, so that's what happens in our society a lot of times, is like when you figure out the rules and you see how you can get a win, then all of a sudden they change the rules on you and you're going 2 steps backwards. So
We know that from the Civil War and the aftermath.
yeah, after Reconstruction, there was change, but even after the Civil Rights Movement. So I was listening to Martin Luther King's speech, The Other America, on my way up here. So one of the things I like to do, this could be helpful to your answer, is I don't listen to the stuff that people popularize. So tomorrow, a lot of folks are gonna be talking about Martin Luther King, celebrating his birthday, and they're gonna go all the way back to 1963, when there was a march on Washington, where he wasn't really in charge. Okay, that's another myth, right? Talk about narrative and optics, right? He wasn't the creator of the march, he was just one of the many people that were involved. The architect of the march is someone else that we don't talk about because of their sexual preference, which is very Protestant, all right? So people always say Martin Luther King was the leader, Martin Luther King was the architect of all this stuff. And they always talk about that speech, because that speech is nice.
Yeah.
Right? He's always talking about dreaming, right? The dream. Everybody wants to keep it a dream.
Right.
But they don't talk about the stuff, because that was 1963. Everybody understand that? He didn't die until 1968. He was assassinated. So if they wanted to kill the dream, they would have killed him then. They didn't kill him when he was talking about integrating the lunch counters and integrating the schools. They killed him when he started talking about let's change the wealth structure. Because he understood that racism and sexism and all the other isms are directly tied to wealth distribution. So socioeconomics is an underlying factor to all of this. Because whiteness as a construct didn't exist until those in power realized that poor white people and poor black people have a similar interest. So they created whiteness as a way to separate poor people from each other so poor people wouldn't change the socioeconomic structure of this country. I don't want to go, this could be a whole nother. You want to come up together? Come on.
It's the core of the problem. It's good. It's the core of the problem.
Hi, everyone, Ashton Simmons. So I kind of wanted to address two things. One was a comment about pride and the other one was about hope. To try to quickly tell my story as possible to get to whether or not there's hope. My parents moved to Chester County in 1978 when I was a couple years old. They moved from DC. My mom's from DC, my dad's from Detroit. So my dad grew up in a really bad situation, single mom, 3 brothers, trying to figure it out on their own. My mother grew up in DC, kind of middle class.
Sorry.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
We'll be all right. We'll be all right.
no, like real emergency. Sorry, Ashton.
So kind of middle class. My grandfather worked in the DC public school system. My grandmother worked in the State Department. So when we moved up here, Chester County's, the diversity was like nothing, right? So we moved to Marchwood Apartments in Exton. And whenever they would meet more people, and this was just a sign of the times, people would meet us and say like, oh, what part of Coastal do you live in? Because that is where the vast majority of Black people lived at the time, right?
Yeah.
So, you fast forward and I end up going to Downingtown, and similar to what Jerry said, your parents do what they feel like they're kind of figuring out, right? There's no playbook to being a parent. So we went to one of the best schools in Chester County, and there's no diversity there. So like Jerry said, you're dealing with all these things that your parents don't necessarily know about. You want to go home and start rocking the boat. So you just kind of figure things out on your own. And yes, there's those playground things that you're talking about if somebody says something wrong to you. I left Chester County, graduated from Downingtown in 95, went to a historically Black college, Morgan State in Maryland, with the idea of, I've grown up like this for so long, let me try this over here. Graduated from Morgan, didn't come back to Chester County, never thought I wanted to come back to Chester County, and then through work relocation, started living around the country. So I've lived in New Hampshire, in Jersey, New York twice, California, San Francisco Bay Area, Chicago, Ohio, right? And I moved back here in 2019 from the San Francisco Bay Area. COVID hit, and in the middle of COVID, and my wife and I, we have 2 children, they're grown children now, they're 25 and almost 24, and I have a grandson that's 18 months old. We moved back here, there was no grandson. My kids didn't live with me, they lived other places. And my wife's an attorney, I went to law school, and she had always had these aspirations of being a judge. And it comes to find out, like, in our area, we live in Chester Springs. So we live like Euclid Township, Upper Euclid Township, that area. There was an opportunity to run for judge. The judge that was in the position, the magisterial district judge, was not going to run again, and there was this opening. And we got asked, so does she want to run? And my wife's, from the Caribbean, so she's Black. And back when I was growing up here, like, this would like not be a thing, right? Like, you're not going to win, right? So you fast forward, and there was a lot of conversation and there was a lot of hate online and there was conversations being had because they didn't know I was from this area originally, the people that were kind of throwing the hate at us. And they didn't know kind of like the education level of either of us. And you fast forwarded, she ended up winning. So by winning in 2021, she became the first woman of color of any kind to be elected to a judicial seat in the history of Chester County in 2021. But then you fast forward to last year, now you have Freddie Maddox, who just got elected, who's also Black, to the Court of Common Pleas. So when you talk about hope, and Jerry's talking about small wins, like those are the small wins that make me believe that we can head in a positive direction.
Yeah.
So when my picture was taken in January of 2022, we had just come off of, and my wife won by 60 votes. We went through a month of recounts of votes because her opponent was like, there's no way in, you know where, that I'm gonna lose to this person. So it's recount after recount after recount. And after a month, after election day, she was finally determined that she was the winner. So a month later, I'm getting my picture taken. So you talk about pride. It's everything that I just told you about my family and growing up and having gone to law school and having kids that have gone to college and now having a grandson that I feel like I'm doing all of this for him and his family after that. And to be the husband of somebody who's, by the way, not even from Chester, not even from Pennsylvania, she grew up on Long Island, to come here as a first generation Haitian American to Chester County and win that election. I mean, my parents were like, this is great. I don't know how this happened. My friends I grew up with who, you know, a lot of my friends I grew up with, like, they didn't come back to Pennsylvania because of all the things that Jerry and I are talking about. They moved to Maryland, they moved to New York, they moved to Chicago to be around, you know, more people. A lot of people I went to Downingtown with, they decided to move to Coatesville and their kids went to Coatesville school districts for the same reason, right? So I do see the hope, and it also is part and parcel as to why I agreed to be a part of this project, because if no one else is going to do it, like, you have to be the change you want to see, right? So it's like you have to step up and show people that people like Jerry and Jermaine and myself and the other people in these pictures, like, that we actually exist. Because I think one thing that we don't do, that I try to do as a Black father, grandfather, whatever, is not only talk to my kids about like my story, my journey, but to introduce them to my friends and people that I know that are also doing things. Because a lot of times, and anybody as a parent, it's in the room knows, like, you can tell your parent, you tell your kids something all day. They don't listen to you until Jerry tells them the same thing, right? So I think that's a lot of the point behind, like, when you introduce your kids to all these people and they understand that there's more than just the parents that they live with that are doing these things, they realize, like, really, I can literally go out and be anything that I want to be. And that was one of the things I took away when Barack Obama got elected. I was like, I can no longer make excuses. Right. I mean, that's how I look at it. He got elected. Funny enough, he got elected on my birthday. I was like, I mean, I took it as a thing. Like, it was in that moment I decided to go to law school. So I went to law school as a second career law school student. And I was like, there's no more excuses to be had. If you want something, you got to go get it. And there's going to be challenges. There's going to be hurdles. There's people that are not going to want you to have what you want, but you have to go get it. You just got to figure it out and kind of like whatever it takes. So that's kind of the message I give the kids. But when you also when I'm mentoring, it's the same thing.
So this is what I experienced during each of their sessions. And this is why I tear up when I hear them speak, because it's so important and that we listen. Thank you for sharing both. But like, this is what's the stories that I heard. So it could have been 5 hours and I would have still listened and like take photos. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
You mentioned Rustin, and the movie is on Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
People are interested in seeing that.
So Netflix put out a movie, I think came out a month ago, about Bayard Rustin, and how the march came about in 1968. But the reason I brought that up is, if you really want to understand Martin Luther King, listen to what he said in 1968, right before he was assassinated, because the stuff that he was saying then was different than what he was saying in 1963, which is the stuff they always play. So he was talking about the Four People's Campaign, And he was talking about redistribution of wealth. And he was talking against Vietnam, which was America's military industrial complex. So he was talking about shifting the direction in which our country does things. Like, how can you be this beacon of light, but yet you do destruction everywhere you go? So it's this dichotomy of who we are as a nation. And that was dangerous. So as long as you're dreaming, it's fine. But his speech that he gave, one of the speeches he gave in 1968 was, how do you stay awake? This whole idea of being woke, right? How do you stay awake during a great revolution? So they like you when you're dreaming, okay? But they don't want you to be awake to actually do something about the dreams. So that's the challenge.
So one of the men, Daryl, wanted to be photographed at Ruston High School because of that reason. I was surprised because, you know, we moved here in 2014 and my kids go, like, they went to third and like, I don't know, kindergarten and third grade when they started here. And I asked them, I said, did you hear about Mr. Rustin in any of your classes? And to my surprise, there was not like, they could not like tell the information that Daryl told me during that interview. Which brings me to a point that might be like a little bit like, Jerry and I talk, I'm very careful not to offend anyone, which is really difficult when you have a project that goes about social justice. So, but like, I think that we are so afraid to talk about certain subjects to offend people or to make like rumors that we don't talk about it. I can tell you that one of my kids in one of their classes was told, we skipped this subject, we skipped this chapter about slavery because I will get people emailing me that they don't want their kids to be educated on that. That was like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And that upset me. So we went through that whole subject and more. So you see some of the books that are there are like, there are a few of mine. And I just like let my kids read everything. And you know, but like, I think it's important for our kids to learn about, not only about slavery, but also about the Black successes and about the Black like experiences that are very positive, because it does not always have to be all negative. And it's important to learn about that too, but it's also important to learn about the people who were like the shoulders that we are, I don't know, but like we are standing upon, like to like did all the work to make sure that we can talk about like this in a church today. So that was one of the things that I would like to emphasize.
What Sandrine just mentioned ties back to what Austin said, which is about the pride thing. See, what you hear when you hear him speak, you hear Jermaine speak, or myself speak, is you hear legacy. Like, we all have different stories, but there's a similar strain that goes to all our stories. When people talk about this idea that, you know, how do Black men show up in the world, how Black men are fathers, and we have all these narratives about all this negative stuff. They want you to believe all this stuff that's not true. I come from a family of generational marriage. I saw my great-great-grandparents, well, not my great-great, my great-grandparents lived in Coatesville on Merchant Street. They were together till they both passed away. Both my grandparents were together till they both passed away. I've seen fatherhood and manhood for multiple generations. So there is legacy and there is pride to who I am. I am proud to be this skin color. I like butterscotch crimson. That's the color that I am. Okay? When people talk about, oh, we should be colorblind. No, why are we being colorblind? The colors were given to us for a reason. When I was a kid, Crayola had a crayon box with a pencil, a sharpener in the back, and it was like over 100 crayons. I never got that box. I always wanted it. So when I turned 18 and got a job, that's one of the first things I bought was my own crayon box. And all the colors, because the kid who had the most colors was like the coolest kid in kindergarten, because he had all the crayons, But then when we become adults, we're like, we don't want to have all the colors seen. We want to be like, oh, everything is the same, or it's like we want to limit what we're exposed to. Variety and diversity is key to all of our growth. It's not that the colors are bad, it's that we shouldn't see the difference in the color in terms of a person's humanity.
Yes.
We've been in our society, we've stripped humanity away from people. And that's what chattel slavery did, was that's why when we talk about was there slavery in other countries, well, we were the only country where we used enslavement as a way to take away people's humanity. They didn't do that in every other culture before this one. So legacy and pride come into who we are. And a lot of us, we have to do the corrective education in order to make sure our children continue to have that. That's where the hope is. I see the hope in my daughter's eyes. I had to invest in them to give them that hope because they didn't get it in Kennedy School District. Because they would do projects at school, and they would say you have to use the books in the Kennedy Library, and the Kennedy Library would only have books on Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman. But Layla, who's my oldest daughter, she's 17 now, she wanted to do something on Fannie Lou Hamer. Well, they don't have anything in the library on Fannie Lou Hamer, so you're not being able to do the projects that you want. So I had to invest my own money to give them books, resources, even to the point where I took them to Egypt for 2 weeks so they could see the cradle of civilization. So they have seen the pictures on the walls in the tombs to see what the color of people look like in the pyramids. No one can deny it from them because they know what people look like where everything was created. It wasn't created with Hippocrates, it was Imhotep before them. So I gave them the truth. So no matter what happens to them in this world, this society, they can't be torn down. And the other reason I did that for them is because they're women as well. And in other cultures, women were also leaders, but in our culture, more Western culture, they tell you that women are supposed to be in the background. I didn't want them to feel that way. So exposure, which ties back into the optics and the narratives, is critical to all of this. And the key for all of us here is that we continue to expose ourselves to things that make us uncomfortable so we have the dialogues and we ask the right questions.
Christine, I would like to, oh, sorry. Go ahead, thank you.
Well, I've been sitting here for an hour, being determined that I was not going to speak and make this comment because everybody here is going to say, oh, you're so naive, blah, 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 blah. And I'm very aware of all the things that have been going on here. But there was an article in paper this morning where a woman had sent out postcards to a whole bunch of different people and said, what is your concept of race in 6 words? And I thought, that's easy. There is only one human race.
Right.
And the sooner that we all realize that, we are all the same. I'm sorry, somehow. And it's a joke, the quote, white women who go out and work so hard to get a tan. I mean, just think about it. Anyway.
And you're correct, that we're all.
There is only one human race, and it was the settlers that.
Our cultures were tribal, our cultures were tribal,
Yeah.
not broken down by race.
Thank you for sharing. Christine, I would like to come, like, if you would like to come up and share a little bit about, like, how the journey was for you, because you were a very important part of it too. I know you're there in the back, but I'm calling you out.
She's not doing it. She's not, she wants no part.
Before that, I don't know, Jermaine, did you want to say anything?
I'm very shy, but I will.
He was like shaking his head constantly.
My wife makes me come up here, so. I'm terrible at public speaking, but I'm gonna have to, these 2 gentlemen just inspired me to get more into public speaking. My name is Jermaine Thomas. I'm originally from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm a graduate of Lincoln University in Oxford, PA. I moved back to Harrisburg after I graduated, and I met my lovely wife who was in her senior year at Penn State. Now, she said, I will never move to Harrisburg. And I said, okay, so we had to make a decision, and I moved down here to Chester County, moved back to Chester County after spending 4 years in college here. I worked in corporate America for 20 years and was laid off during the pandemic. So my wife looked at me and she said, what are we gonna do? Now, again, with Jerry and what we talked about and what you see in the photo here is my barbershop is, I had to make a decision because I cut hair in Westchester for 7 years. And I said to myself, you know what, let me look at a map. So I looked at the map and Downingtown was smack dead center of Chester County. Point your fingers, center of Chester County. So I opened this barbershop here 18 years ago, going on 19 years. So if anybody has driven, if you drive by 322 and 10 on the corner, you'll see it. It's right next to the coffee cup. You'll always see me there in the front right here, but we've been here 18 years. And one of the things that we dealt with was being labeled. We were labeled a black barbershop. Yeah. We're not a black barbershop. Yeah. We're just a barbershop that's owned by a black man. Yeah. So if you Google us and if you get a chance, go home and Google All-Star Images of Downingtown and you'll see the images. You'll see what you see because we treat everyone like a star here. And what we do now, we do so much community outreach, it's overwhelming. Like Sandria, we do so many different projects in our community. I don't have enough time in my schedule sometimes, but again, we try to make a way with it. But going back to, what I'm saying about myself as far as being pride and having this spirit that I have now. Christine, get over here, get over here. This is my neighbor, actually. Get over here, get over here. You're not gonna get over. So Chester County is very interesting and it's delicate. But one thing I've learned, and I have pride living here 20-something years, is that I am Chester County. So when I go somewhere, there's 3 degrees in separation. So you'll know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. No matter if you're Westchester, Coatesville, Downingtown, Malvern, whatever, you're gonna know somebody. Either they work at Lucan's, either they work at Vanguard, either they work at the hospital, or whatever school they work at. We all know each other. And that's the one thing great about this area. So navigating the waters here as far as the financial waters and knowing the business landscape, one thing I've learned, the richness of Chester County is that when you leave Chester County, you meet people outside and you tell them where you're from, there's a brotherhood here. And the people, that's what happened with me in Downingtown, because now Downingtown is embracing, we are Downingtown. No matter if you say anything about All-Stars, they'll tell you Downingtown, we're Downingtown. They'll say, oh, okay, oh yeah, the barbershop on the corner. Everybody's aware and they know about us. And you can Google us and you'll see that we've represented the town very well. So the town loves us, they embrace us. I can walk anywhere in town, do anything. I'm not the mayor, but I'm close to it.
I know you are.
I know, I can go anywhere in town. I don't get pulled over. If I get pulled over, it's a joke. Anything in town, but for me to just say thank you for having this and thank you for welcoming us here. I was inspired to speak. These gentlemen just inspired me. So I'm taking public speaking classes. I'm moved and I'm so emotional right now because this is something very important and dear to us. And we thank you for taking the time and staying and sitting here and listening, because this is very important to all of us. And this person who's very shy, and her accolades speak for herself. She's so shy, but she's amazing. But you have to tell them, because she's our hidden gem. So she's a diamond in a hidden gem. So you have to tell them. You have to share you to the world.
No, you're inspiring me. Well, first off, I just want to thank you all for making time to do this, to be here. You didn't have to be. You could have done any number of things. And so I'm just thankful that you chose to be a part of this discussion. I also really want to thank Sandrine for saying yes to something that was very nebulous, that she had no idea what she was saying yes to, but I also had no idea what I was asking. So I've been very thankful for the journey that we've had. Also very thankful for all of the gentlemen who said yes to something that they didn't even fully know what it was going to translate into. It's been very inspiring to be a part of this journey. And I think there's a question by a young lady sitting there, is there hope? Is it going to translate into anything, right? And I would like to believe that there is. We are here. We are having this conversation. Maybe we may not have had this conversation 6 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago. So the fact that we can have this open dialogue on things that are difficult, there are many things that have been unspoken, even in this hour and 15 minutes that we've stood here. So the fact that we are giving ourselves permission to sit in an uncomfortable conversation with a desire to want to be better, each one of us, to me, gives me hope. And it just becomes a question of, what are we going to do with this knowledge? What are we going to do with the connections that we make? What are we going to do the next time we see a picture? What are we going to do when we catch ourselves in an implicit bias moment? Because we all have that chance to make that decision. Yesterday, I caught myself in an implicit bias moment, literally. I was pulling up at the church, where I go to church. I just parked the car. And there was a black man walking up. And for an instant, was like, oh my gosh, am I safe? For an instant, and I just couldn't believe it. I just felt broken. It was like, wow, I can't believe that I just had from that fraction of a second, right? And then there was a white man that came up, and I asked myself, did I have that moment? So if we can catch ourselves in those moments and reorient and act, I think it gives us a chance to continue to grow. This project is one that continues to grow, continues to enter spaces that I don't know we had envisioned will enter. We still have big dreams. You talked about dreams. We still have big dreams. I see this one day at the Philly airport, you know, as we're running to catch whatever American Airlines such and such, that you see the 20 Men Project. It was called the 20 Men Project. We now have 30 how many pictures, right? So it continues to grow. And my hope is that we'll choose to be responsible for the new knowledge that we gain every single day. Excuse me. And what drives me is around finding ways in which we can build healthy communities, right? And I'm originally from Kenya. Came to the US to go to college, went to Strasbourg for undergrad, Lehigh grad, taught at Shippensburg, taught at Villanova, been around Chester County for a little bit. But it hurts me that my older son had a racial situation that happened to him during kindergarten, and I found out when he was writing his college essay. A year and a half ago, right? So this thing is still going on. It's still going on. And that these young people, their voices continue to get squashed because they don't think they're in a safe space. And to address that question of pride that came up, the fact that these pictures can show pride emanating, to me tells me that we have a handful of men that felt that they were seen, that chose to present themselves and chose to present themselves with pride. And that the more we can continue to see that, hopefully we'll have another little boy somewhere who'll say, you know what, this happened to me, and I now have somewhere safe that I can go and see. I now have someone safe they can reach out to, and that actually I can come forward in pride. And I know that all of that would not have happened were it not that we had this nurse photographer. So she used to be a nurse, but now she's a photographer. And I think that she brings that holistic process in engaging with people, in building trust, and encouraging individuals to really come into their own. So again, should have given me this mic. Thank you so much. Thank you for saying yes to having us. We don't take this lightly. I really, really appreciate you all, and be blessed. God is good. All right. And God has a desire for each one of us to do good. So I just pray that his blessings continue to abound in your lives, and that you continue to embrace one another and know that, what are those 6 words again?
We are only one human race.
We are only one human race. 6 words. Thank you. God bless.
I want, before you sit down, Christine, I want to thank you all profoundly for being here. Last June, I went to the Juneteenth celebration in Westchester. I'd never been before. I wasn't sure would I be allowed to go? Would people want me there because I'm white? But I did it, and I'm so glad I did it. I'm so glad. This is where I met Sandrine. This is where I saw the 20 Men Project. So I share my story as just, we have to risk. We have to be willing to go in spaces where we might feel a little uncomfortable, unsure, but go, because we need to hear one another's stories. We need to get to know one another. We need to recognize in one another's humanity, dignity, to know that we all are one human race and we belong together, and we need to be advocates to keep doing this hard work of seeking justice, seeking equality, equity. And I loved Jerry, when he's talking about the fifth generation, the Native American, they talk about the seventh generation. They do make all their decisions and all their choices for the seventh generation. And I loved that. And when you said the fifth, that reminded me of that, but I think there's wisdom in that. We have to think out of the seventh generation. So we can do work that we might not see where it goes and how it ends. Our children might not see it, but it's not insignificant. So we stay in the game as those who are people, know themselves as people of Christ. Oops, what happened?
They cut us off. It's
They cut
like,
us off.
that's well done.
But as we know ourselves as people of Christ, also to know that's our bigger context, that we continue that work of Christ. Matthew 25, to treat one another with humanity as if we're treating one another with the Christ in you is treating the Christ in me. So with that, I'd like to just offer a prayer, and I do invite you to continue. If you appreciated this, we have the display will be up today until, the display will be up, but we'll be here today until 2. If you go home and you want to drag your neighbor back, please do. Or if you want to call somebody, like, you got to go over, like, this is be really nice to be part of. It's up today. It'll be here today. There'll be Sandrine will be here, and I don't know if any of the others who are part of this want to stay till 2, but please bring people back. Also tomorrow, we will have this open to the public also from 9 in the morning till noon, and then we will take it down at noon. So again, bring people tomorrow if they're not able to come today. Spread the word out, and then hopefully it'll go to Cheney. So it was so beautiful. I got an email, I guess when this started getting publicized, I got an email from Jen Stewart at Cheney. Our church has been doing some work with Cheney, and so she must have gotten on our email list, and so she saw it and she reached out to me. She said, "Oh, I wish we could bring our students here, but they're all still on break. They're not here, And so I said, "Well, we are recording it, but we're not going to share it until we get permission from all the men to make sure that they would be comfortable if we share our Zoom link." So that's still there. But I said, and I said, you might reach out to Sandrine. So maybe I send it to you. I sent her email to you. So I think you reached out to her. I'm so excited that sounds like it's going to happen at Cheney. So if you have connections with others in their orbit, like, say, this would be awesome to bring to wherever your place is, to your barber shop. But I just think there's opportunities, and I think the more that this gets shared, the more lives that touch, people's hearts get touched, it will continue to build and grow. I think love is stronger than hate, and I think we can be about that. And we are empowered. We are empowered by our Lord is with us. So let me close with prayer and go back and look at the pictures. Help yourself to more goodies that are out. I asked Harry to make extra today, so I know we have plenty. So let me offer prayer. Lord, we thank you for the beauty of this moment and this opportunity to have the 20 Men Project exhibition with us here at Westminster, and with all the people who have brought this to life and who are able to be with us, and those who couldn't be here in person, but who also have brought this to life. Lord, may each of us continue to do this work of promoting racial justice and equity, and help us to do our part in being peacemakers and reconcilers going forward wherever we find ourselves. Bless this project, and we know that in your hands things can just go in directions we can't even imagine. And so we entrust this to you, and to the benefit of Christ, and to the glory of the kingdom, the beloved community that you want us to be. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.